Have you ever played a game that, even though you enjoy, you set aside and forget to return to for months or maybe even years? Until one day it pops back into your mind, but this time, knowing what you're getting into, it is exactly what you're looking for, and you fully immerse yourself into it. This has been my experience with 3 of my favorite games: Dark Souls, Sekiro, and of course the subject of this video. Welcome to my love letter to Deadly Premonition.
At times, we must purge things from this world because they should not exist, even if it means losing someone that you love.
Beyond the sense of love and reflection, we were always wandering. Beyond the time of darkness, fear the wind so long. Feeling the warmth of lust of light, we were always searching. Beyond the time of darkness, fear the wind so long.
Grandpa, hurry! Hurry up! Grandpa, you're too slow!
In the opening scene, we follow the twins, Isaac and Isaiah, as they play in the woods with their grandfather. But then they stop, stunned by something out of view. And after another step forward, the horrifying sight is revealed. Leaves fly by in the wind as the twins look up at the ritualistic murder scene. But strangely, as the camera returns to them, we see that their expressions resemble awe more than horror. The scene could almost be beautiful if it were not so grotesque. This is our introduction to Deadly Premonition, and with it, the town of Greenvale.
Sure, that's one way of looking at it, but it's totally wrong.
Introducing FBI Special Agent Francis York Morgan, but just call him York.
Everyone calls me that.
He has possibly one of the most insane character introductions I have ever seen. He is smoking, using his laptop, and talking on his phone about the philosophy of Tom and Jerry, all at the same time as he, drives.
Well, in the Tom and Jerry show, they live with each other. Hello?
With worse writing, York could be very frustrating. He comes off as a compassionless and distrustful outsider, with some strange requests at times during the investigation.
Oh, by the way, would you two kindly show me your bags?
And who has a habit of having seemingly one-sided conversations with what the people around him could only assume is an imaginary friend named Zach.
Would you like to come with us?
Zach, what do you think?
But it is Zach that makes York such a truly great character. After starting a new game, you are immediately put into the role of Zach.
Zach, can you hear me? Good. I thought you went to sleep.
And this lets you have a much more personal connection with York, which really humanizes him. He'll talk with or more at you about 80s movies, his punk rock days, and his relationships.
1986, directed by John Hughes. That one was so 80s.
You join him at the start of a new case, investigating the murder of a young woman, Anna Graham.
These puppies are making me go to another town in the boondocks again.
And from the beginning, you are immersed in the surreal elements of Deadly Premonition. Starting in the Red Room, a strange, foreboding place filled with cryptic visions and apparitions.
My name is Becky.
Its saturated crimson environment and sinister ambiance sets the stage for the game's unsettling aesthetic. But York's arrival in Greenvale is thrown into disarray. You emerge in the dark otherworld.
Zach, there goes the civilized world.
Here you are met with red vines, unsettling images, and distorted shadows intent on killing you. And also the Raincoat Killer. You can also gather evidence here, allowing York to profile the scene. This will reveal small glimpses of past events that leave your imagination to fill in the disturbing details. The town's inhabitants, while seemingly normal, exude a sense of peculiarity, adding to the game's strange atmosphere. I mean, this guy's like dead, right? That's a dead guy. But seriously, even amidst all these surreal elements, Deadly Premonition maintains a grounding in reality. through the day-to-day routines of the townsfolk and your mundane tasks of eating, sleeping, and cleaning your suit. This creates a more immersive experience that rides the line between fantasy and reality. This delicate balance is intentional and crucial to the experience. Through York's perspective, the player questions the reality of what they see. Are the red and later revealed white rooms, the other world, and the monsters York encounters within a darkened version of our own world, a symbolic vision, or simply the product of York's potentially fractured mind? After having escaped the other world, you walk to a bridge at the edge of town,
Now you were very late.
where you are greeted by the deputy sheriff, Emily Wyatt.
Welcome to Greenvale.
And by the sheriff, George Woodman.
Could you tell me why the FBI is so interested in a small-town homicide?
Let's just say it's a personal interest in killers of young women.
Who is hostile to your involvement in the case from the beginning.
Don't know how to say that. But, we really don't need your help. Unlike some of your corrupt city police officers, I play it by the book. I hope you'll come to appreciate that, Agent Morgan.
At the lodge, York gets some much-needed rest and breakfast, then delivers an amazing line that I quote to this day anytime I have coffee.
F.K. in the coffee. I knew I could count on it. Never fails.
Later, at the sheriff's department, you meet George's assistant, Thomas, and head to the hospital for Anna's autopsy with George and Emily.
Agent Morgan, if you're so desperate, then why not smoke two at once?
Upon finding a red seed in her throat, York takes control of the investigation, much to the ire of George.
This case is now under the jurisdiction of the FBI. I'm assuming command. I'll need you to assist me in the investigation.
Revealing similar seeds from his previous cases.
There you go. Amazing, huh?
Now, with control over the case, you search the location where Anna's body was found, which leads you to the old lumber mill where you find the scene of her murder. One close call with the raincoat killer later, and York tells Emily and George they can relax now, as he's ruled them out as suspects.
I'm glad to say you're both pretty much off the hook.
Then gathers the townsfolk in the town hall for a town meeting.
Can we arrange to have the townfolk gather in one place?
I'll arrange to have as many as possible gather in the community center tomorrow.
Thank you, George.
Here you finally have a chance to meet the townsfolk of Greenvale, which are an important part of the game's charm. They all have distinct personalities that are shown through their quests and dialogue, as well as varying schedules throughout the day. You'll see them in their cars moving about the town or coming and going from shops, and this all makes them feel more like inhabitants of the world you're in, rather than just NPCs waiting on your beck and call. To start with, we have the characters you already know from the sheriff's department. George is strong-willed and pumps iron like a machine. Emily is a horrible cook, but kind and upstanding person.
I'm sure there was a reason for what your father did.
And Thomas, who on the other hand is an incredible cook, but less so officer. While they are skeptical of York and his methods at first, you gradually earn their trust and respect as the investigation continues, which fosters a sense of camaraderie in the group.
York, I'm sorry. I'll follow your orders from now on. You'll have my total cooperation.
Now for a crash course on the townsfolk. Becky, Anna's best friend, but doesn't leave the house since the murder. Brian takes care of the graveyard, and I'm still pretty sure he's dead, right? Carol, Thomas's sister, and runs a bar in town. Diane, Becky's older sister, and runs the art gallery. Usha, the town doctor, and loves chess.
My first victory in the Grandmaster ranking.
Harry, the mysterious capitalist who has his assistant speak for him. Michael, Harry's assistant, and speaks nearly exclusively in rhyme.
I am here for Mr. Stewart's lunch. If it is ready, I'd thank you a bunch.
Jack runs the Heaven and Hell gas station. He is rude.
Shut up.
And creepy.
She's hot. A total babe.
Gina, Jack's wife, she gives car washes?
Bubbles. Washing cars is fun. Shiny.
Keith, my absolute favorite.
Of course, we're buddies, man.
He's an ever-cheerful rockabilly who runs the grocery store and affectionately refers to you as FBI.
You lit my soul, man. Thanks, FBI.
And I mean, he even does that same chest-tapping thing York does. Isaac and Isaiah, twin sons of Keith and Lily, there's something a bit off about them. Like, I'm pretty sure they can see dead people.
Anna was the fairy of the forest.
She was a goddess.
She smiled when she saw us.
She looked so happy.
Nick and Olivia are married and run the A&G diner together. Nick loves art, not so much York.
I didn't do it.
Polly, probably just a sweet old widow who runs the hotel, but she gives me sinister vibes.
She successfully avoided answering my question, Zach. Amazing.
And finally, Sigourney, the pot lady, always wandering around town, then demanding you to drive her home immediately so that her pot doesn't get cold.
Why aren't we there yet? Could you step on it? If we go this slow, my pot is going to get cold.
What would you do if I wasn't here to drive you home, Sigourney, huh? Would your pot have gotten cold?
Thanks to you, my pot is still warm.
After the town meeting concludes, York goes to the diner with the sheriffs, where he gets to show off his, impeccable social skills.
The guy killed 7 girls in a 3-month period. He sawed their heads off from the neck and used them as utensils in his daily life. He'd fill skulls with ice, cola, and rum. Then he'd down it in one gulp. The question of his mental state was the pivotal point in the court case. For me, he was insane. 100%. Drinking from the skulls, well, that is one thing, but those he had used to relieve himself, he would then just use them to drink from, too. Yeah, that was too much for me. It's just not sanitary.
Thank you, Agent York. Now, let's talk about something else.
You don't want to hear anymore? That's a shame, isn't it, Zach? I was just about to get to the good part, too.
Then, as the chapter closes, you are shown a new arrival to the town, a mysterious tree salesman named Forrest Kaysen. Combat in Deadly Premonition takes place in the other world, at locations you investigate throughout the case. Most encounters proceed similarly, with York fighting his way through hordes of shadows and evading the raincoat killer while gathering evidence to profile the scene. You start with only a pistol and knife, but as the game progresses, you find, buy, and are rewarded for side missions with an arsenal of increasingly insane weapons. I was partial to the wrench and flamethrower for most of my first playthrough. If only you didn't have to have already beaten the game to get the RPG or light sword. Sadly, the enemy variety to use these weapons on is very low, while the combat is janky, rarely very difficult, and tends to overstay its welcome. Yeah, so we can end this anytime now, seriously, just whenever you want, I'm ready. Hearing me say all of this, it would be fair to think it's terrible, but that's not the full story. Combat is not the focus of this game, and these issues come as less of a surprise when you learn that it was added late in development because according to the publisher, without combat it won't sell in the West. But putting all these issues aside, in smaller doses it serves as a fun break of pace, your primary interaction with the Raincoat Killer, and builds intrigue through the profiling sections, which I always look forward to. In the open world, you have access to activities that give an almost Yakuza-like feel to the game. You can collect trading cards, go fishing, race, and play darts. But your biggest side activity will be doing missions for the townsfolk. There are a lot of them, and the process of finding and completing many of them could make even Dark Souls quest designers blush. They all have specific chapter restrictions around when you can play them, at times weather restrictions, and worst of all, you need to work around the daily schedules of the townsfolk to even talk to them. Combine these factors with the relative lack of information to help you start them in the first place, and it can be daunting to do all of this without a guide. A lot of the quests are worth it though, rewarding you with useful tools or weapons, new bits of the story, and a better understanding of Greenvale.
Zach, look at this red powder. This must be what Delivery Man Q was transporting.
Continuing the investigation, York and crew head to the art gallery to interview its owner, Diane, and then look into her alibi, late-night drinks with Nick.
I'm sure if you ask him about it, he'll say the same.
I followed him. He did go to the bar, to start with.
But as night falls, you are interrupted by a call on the radio.
Emily, answer me! I've just received word from Thomas at the Sheriff's Department. Something has happened at Becky's house. It sounded like he said, Raincoat Killer.
Take care of Olivia. I'm heading over to Betty's.
She lives in the big house over by the lake. Hurry!
The scene you find is grim.
George, stay back. She's trying to speak.
We don't have time, Thomas. Cut that wire. What are you doing? Get out of the way. I'll do it.
No, don't. George, stop.
With Becky having become the second victim, the pressure mounts to make progress.
You got us good this time, Zach.
But just a single night later, while following your current prime suspect, Nick, things get even worse.
Wait! She's still alive.
Diane, don't move.
Diane was the next target, and while you were given a moment of hope finding her still alive, that hope was quickly torn away as the third victim was claimed.
The coffee warned me about it.
So right about now, I wouldn't blame you for thinking that Deadly Premonition isn't an especially funny game. But I'm here to tell you you're wrong. It is, and shame on you for even thinking that.
I'll be frank.
Nothing can properly prepare you for the whiplash of witnessing what you just have, abruptly followed by Willie's entrance. And upbeat music popping on while he walks past the pools of blood, leading you to Kaysen, where it suddenly transitions right back to serious investigation mode.
Diane just died a moment ago.
What?
You're not just a key witness now. You're now a suspect. And you need to tell me exactly what you were doing here.
It is on another level of hilariously unhinged.
If they're pros, then we should let every first-person shooter gamer out there join the SWAT team.
And the game is filled with these moments that you are never ready for. The Sinner's Sandwich.
Strawberry jam and cereal sandwich.
Sounds like the sinner's sandwich. Self-inflicted punishment to atone for past sins. He's setting an example.
Seriously, go watch the whole scene. It's a masterpiece.
I can't believe it. This is fantastic. It's really good.
Monkey squirrels? Or when a drunk Emily comes to York's room, and so he of course tells her about his father's murder-suicide.
I was 7. My father was there pointing a gun at my mother. I was so scared. When I came back to my senses, they were both dead. He shot my mother and then killed himself.
The humor never feels forced. Rather than painfully focused group-tested jokes, it arises naturally from its characters and situations, resulting in genuinely funny moments with a level of intentional awkwardness.
Her cooking is pretty good, but it isn't for two-legged animals.
Oh, did you hear that, Zach? Not for two-legged animals. I'll have to remember that one.
Okay. Finish up.
And even when it isn't intentionally making you laugh, you have great moments. Like the way York taps the air in front of his chest while he talks. This conversation where they used the wrong audio file.
I didn't come here to organize your storage room.
Oh my god. And my favorite, the lines York says nearly every time he headshots any random enemy.
Great. Yes. Amazing. Bullseye. Yes. Nice shot.
Speaking of comedic relief music, this stuff goes insanely hard and can change a scene's entire mood in a second, and the rest of the soundtrack is just as good. In fact, all the background music in this video is from the soundtrack, which really embodies Greenvale, its mystique, dark secrets, and strange, quirky nature. I couldn't imagine any other soundtrack for this game, and I won't make you listen to the whole thing, but each of these pieces serves an important role in the atmosphere Deadly Premonition creates, and how it captures your imagination. The soundtrack weaves between smooth jazz, rock, gorgeous piano, and even some killer synth. The main theme is easily one of my favorites. Hearing it every time you boot up the game immediately sets the mood for what is to come. Greenvale feels very Twin Peaks inspired, with clear reference to Laura Palmer's theme, and it gives me goosebumps every time. Goddess is haunting and beautiful, evoking the image and feeling of the opening scene of Anna's body. The combat music doesn't disappoint either. Red Tree comes in with unnerving sounds and wild audio stingers, while the boss music becomes more orchestral with opera singers. This leads us to the more lighthearted songs, which capture the strange nature of Greenvale. I can't help but smile whenever I hear the whistles of Life is Beautiful. This song is so cheerful and a welcome reprieve from the more sinister tone during much of your investigation. And, I mean, there's a kazoo in it. This last one I'm not quite sure how to describe, but to me it very much represents its namesake, the underground of Greenvale. Its strange, low-profile sounds give off the seedy, uncomfortable feeling of 1920s noir, and having gone somewhere that you should not be. Now, it's about time I address the elephant in the room. Deadly Premonition draws significant inspiration from the television show Twin Peaks, in its setting, aesthetic, and thematic elements. From the unusual blend of humor and horror to its nods to iconic characters like the Log Lady, both protagonists' love of coffee.
Do you like coffee?
I am very particular about my coffee.
Agent
York
loves coffee.
And that's not even mentioning its entire setup, or, you know, this picture of Laura in Anna's room. The influences are obvious, but the writers used them as a starting point from which to build their own mythos rather than just copy the path that Twin Peaks took, something they did so well that, for me, it even surpasses its inspiration at times. I know I certainly enjoyed the third act of Deadly Premonition a lot more than this.
When I talk to you, I get a tingling sensation in my toes and in my stomach.
It's interesting.
In this regard, I would argue that Deadly Premonition is maybe the only game to truly deliver an experience like that of watching Twin Peaks for the first time.
It is happening again. It is happening again.
Leads have come and gone, Nick was nothing but a red herring, and more questions have been raised than answers given. But while searching for the now missing Thomas, the ghost of Anna leads you to the Galaxy of Terror, where you will finally start to get some answers. After being taken captive by Thomas.
We come toward the climax.
Emily searches for York,
He's definitely been here.
enlisting the help of Willie and Kaysen.
We're counting on you, boy. Welcome to the Force, Deputy Willie.
And you get to briefly play as her while you follow Willie and listen to some seriously funky beats. Meanwhile, the captive York is getting a little introspective with you.
When I first met her on the bridge, she looked so dignified. And that glimmer in her eyes when she argues every word I say. Her blonde hair lit by the dawn.
Willie leads her to the clock tower, where, to her horror, she enters the other world, confirming to you that it is in fact real and not just a part of York's mind.
Stop! I wonder who'll be the next person to open this door. Well, whoever that person is will be the one to decide your fate.
After fighting her way to the top of the tower, Emily is faced with Thomas. She tries her best to use reason,
Surrender and turn yourself in.
but it's already too late.
I hate you so much. Die, you skanky swine.
Thomas!
York is freed following Thomas's unfortunate death and reveals the killer's identity to Emily.
George? George is the killer?
Emily, come in.
Emily here. I've rescued Agent York from the clock tower. We're heading back to the department now.
Okay, I'll do the same.
It's time to confront George. In the sheriff's department, you find what was hidden in plain sight from the very beginning. In the same cell that you grabbed a key out of in Chapter 2, a partially covered door. Inside, you find another dungeon. That sense of camaraderie was a lie. The sheriff's department was rotten from the beginning, and Thomas and George were trying to sabotage your investigation at every step. In her dying breath, Carol forces red seeds down Emily's throat, and after an unnerving warning from Kaysen,
But if something happens, don't blame me, okay? Just go!
he agrees to take her to the hospital so York can finally end things with George.
Welcome to Greenvale, Agent Francis York Morgan.
But it was I, Dio!
York does what he does best, throwing out killer one-liners,
That's the mark of child abuse.
then finishes George, who looks a little different now.
No, you're a first-degree murderer, and I'm a federal agent. George, of course you're going to lose.
As the fight concludes, the shadow of George's body casts out like a tree over the rooftop, and York collapses. It seems the villain has been defeated and everything has come to a close. But now in the White Room, you are given one more task.
Open that envelope.
Waking in the hospital, Emily is nowhere to be found, and Usha hands you a letter from Force Kaysen. Now we have reached the metaphorical scouring of the Shire. The letter sends you to George's house, revealing a disturbing interior and perhaps even more disturbing revelation.
It wasn't a reversed peace mark. It's a tree. Forrest Kaysen. He's the one. Emily.
In a surreal flashback to the 1950s, as the original Raincoat Killer, you rampage your way through the town to the tune of Amazing Grace. Upon reaching the community center, you return to the present as York arrives at this same place, and you are greeted by Forrest Kaysen, now revealed as the true monster.
York, you left her to me, in my care, remember? My fun with Emily ended just a moment ago. It was a fantastic moment. Like eating a full-course dinner.
York,
He explains that the red seeds will only grow in a special medium.
Oh, didn't I tell you? Getting these saplings to sprout requires a certain technique.
York, shoot me.
Inside York's psyche, we are shown that he witnessed this same event with his parents. It was after this trauma that York appeared, offering to swap places with Zach, his true self.
I'm you, and you are me.
Now, back in the real world, you are shown what he has really looked like this entire time, his true scar.
That wound on your face.
Scars on your face.
That scar on your face is...
There are some things in this world that must be extracted. No matter what, even if that means losing someone that you love.
Despite his best effort, Zach is unable to kill the woman he loves.
I'm sorry, Zach.
So Emily does what he can't.
Emily! Ladies and gentlemen, and now the grand finale.
With her death, she joins the others as the goddess of the forest. Now it's time for Zach alone to defeat Kaysen.
Stand up, Zach. It's up to you now.
And at the end of their showdown in the other world,
it's because you don't understand humans.
Zach pops him like a zit. The town returns to normal, and Harry reveals to Zach that he was George's father, and that his failings are what led us here.
Everything was my fault. If only I had the courage to make the right decision.
Zach says goodbye to York and Emily.
Emily, York, sounds like you're both doing fine.
And Thomas is given redemption, having joined the others as a goddess of the forest. While leaving the lodge, Zach notices one more thing that has been in plain sight all along.
Polly, what's that picture?
We took it when the clock tower was built. That's me in the middle.
Maybe my instincts about Polly were right after all. Finally, back on the bridge where he first met Emily and George, Zach turns to leave Greenvale for good, free from the red seeds at last. Or is it? Deadly Premonition almost resembles an Agatha Christie novel in structure. While the basic facts of the case are directly given to you during the story, through your own investigation, it's entirely possible to find the pieces that fit it all together, connect the dots, and figure it out yourself. So much can be learned by talking to the townsfolk at varying times of day or during different chapters, by peeking through windows, and most easily, by just observing the world around you. There's more than enough foreshadowing and hints to give away most of what happens in the last act, but I was still surprised by how blindsided I was by multiple reveals. The creators did an incredible job of showing you everything you need to know to figure it all out, putting it all right in front of you, but still pulling the wool over your eyes until it is just too late. Looking back, you feel almost stupid for not having figured it all out sooner. The sheer number of things pointing to Kaysen from the very beginning is impossible to entirely miss. There is obviously more to him than meets the eye, but the reveal is left for so long that you can't truly be sure what his role is until he has already fulfilled it. The red trees outside the sheriff's department and George's house feel like an obvious enough sign. Oh no, I'm starting to think there might be a red tree worshipping sex cult under my gym too. George, on the other hand, was played off as an early red herring, which makes it that much easier to drop your guard to him when he opens up to you at the bar. The same conversation at the bar where, in hindsight, he basically confesses everything to you.
And if it weren't for me, both Becky and Diane would still be alive. I could have saved them both. You know, it's almost like they died because of me.
We're heading for devastation. All of us. And no one can stop it.
Deadly Premonition is a game with few alternatives if you want an experience like it. The product of an artist's vision with little compromise that nearly never made it to release. A game that, in today's era of targeting the lowest common denominator, I doubt any publisher would want. And that, for all its flaws, still stands as a masterpiece of world building and storytelling. It is a game I couldn't stop thinking about for weeks after having completed, and still do. A game that would be impossible to capture the full beauty of without experiencing it for yourself, and which led me to some of my favorite media. Its characters, moments, atmosphere, and story all engrossed me and gave me one of the most unforgettable experiences I have ever had in gaming, and that is why I love Deadly Premonition. Thank you for watching.
And this is goodbye, Zach.
Thank you for everything.